Good afternoon. So yeah, the guide dog's a bit of a giveaway because I can't see, and that's why I've got these in, because I'm listening to this nice Oh, didn't mean to do that. Oh, what's it doing? Actually, I'm just going to turn off this trackpad just in case I accidentally. Okay. So if that's too noisy and we'd rather close the door, but I know the window. But I know it'll get hot then otherwise. But you let us know if it's difficult.
Shut it now,
yeah? Okay. I'll tell you what, we can start with it closed, and then if we get hot, then people can start fainting and we'll get the hint and we can open the window again. Seriously though, if it starts getting too hot, please do say and we can open it again. So I'll just show you what my computer sounds like to me, just so that you can get a flavour.
Leading menus. Select technology, power enterprise.
Is that a bit fast?
Slower. Broaden, Christopherson, head of digital inclusion. At AbilityNet at USA Today.
So those are my Twitter handles there. Well, at AbilityNet is the main AbilityNet address. At USA Today is me. I'm going to show loads of video clips this afternoon, so don't worry about wondering where they came from, and in some instances I'm not going to be able to play the whole thing, but don't worry, because after this event I will tweet the links to all the videos and the apps and everything that I'm going to be looking at this afternoon. I'll also send them all to Lisa as well, so she could disseminate them too, so don't worry about kind of following those. So yeah, that's just to let you know why I've got my ears in. I'm going to be... So I'm going to have those just in my ears, if you don't mind, so apologies for that. Is it on this side, the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I have a habit of looking at the screen, and if I'm looking the wrong way, then... So, yeah, as Lisa said, Archie will be coming in at some point, so apologies for that disruption. And, yeah, his idiocy later on, as and when you applaud. So, who are AbilityNet? Well, AbilityNet are a UK national charity concerned with all areas of technology and disability. So, obviously, technology is incredibly beneficial, and there's a heck of a lot of technology out there. Even just kind of optimizing your computer to make it optimal for you to use and the particular needs you have, because we're all different, has a lot of, there's a lot of stuff in there in Windows, in Mac, let alone mobile, and all these other areas of specialist technology. So that's who AbilityNet are. And people come to us, we deliver services in accessibility of websites and software, and in assessments of disabled people in the workplace or in education or in the home, right across all areas of disability. So that's who AbilityNet are. I'm just going to do a few slides at the beginning, and then I'm going to go on to more practical stuff, you'll be pleased to know. So just to do a bit of scene setting, back in the 80s, when the advent of the personal computer, the PC, happened, everything changed for disabled people, and I personally feel a huge beneficiary of this levelling potential of technology to help people overcome their particular disabilities. So for me, at university, I had a laptop with built-in speech. It was the size of a sort of small suitcase, but nevertheless, that really helped. And what we see here is a typical computer, screen, keyboard, mouse, tower, and all of those now are kind of up for grabs. There's so many different versions and varieties, and this is indicative of the potential of technology to be all-inclusive, because all of these have different choices. So for a screen, for example, I can't see the screen, so I use this lovely lady to talk to me. So that screen there, that's optional for me. Now that we've got mobile computing, that screen could be any size. You can get 4K displays at 105 inches or whatever it is, right down to half an inch on wearables that we'll look at later on. So the screen can be any size, or you could have no screen and you could just be using speech output or haptic feedback or driving a braille display, for example. The keyboard, that's optional too. You could be using a sheet of glass and using a soft keyboard. You could be using a switch like Professor Stephen Hawking does, which we'll see in a moment. Or you could be using voice recognition, for example. So there's so many different options. The mouse, I can't see the mouse on the screen. Other people use it very heavily for their particular work, but I use the keystroke alternatives, which are actually a very efficient way of working. I would recommend to learn the basics. For me, I'm doing, I might run the spell checker, for example, with F7, and I've done that keystroke before somebody who's a mouse user has even kind of half reached for the mouse, let alone grabbed it, moved it, clicked it, take your hands back onto the... So you get the idea. And the tower as well, the computers almost incidental these days, the actual brain. You know, where is it? Is it under your desk, or is it built into the screen, or is it, you know, wirelessly connected to your peripherals from your pocket, or is it halfway across the world, you know, and you're just using a kind of a dumb terminal or something like that? So all of these things are have lots of different alternatives, lots of choice, and that's really, really powerful. So that, in essence, is the empowering, you know, all-embracing, inclusive potential that technology has, and it's helping so many different people. So one of the first people that AbilityNet assessed was Professor Stephen Hawking, and he obviously has so much to offer society, and technology unlocked that for him. So here we see him with his kit, and you all know what his voice sounds like. We're going to see a little clip later on. And obviously that's quite an old synthesizer now. They're much more human sounding, as you heard a moment ago, but that's, you know, his voice. So I'm sure I don't need to tell you that we all, you know, have our own voice, and everyone who hears that voice, it instantly knows that it's him, and that's why he's stuck with that voice. And, you know, he's able to communicate on a daily basis. He's able to write his scientific papers and that sort of thing, and provide a massive contribution to society, and also to awareness of the potential of technology to overcome, in this case, very considerable disability. So I mentioned the advent of the PC and how that really helped people. I mean, now 90% of jobs in the UK today have a computer involved in them in some shape or form. And because there's a computer involved, then there's the potential to help people overcome their particular need, whether it's to have speech output or to have an alternative input device. Excuse me. There's loads of different adaptations, and we'll look at a number of them this afternoon. But then the smartphone came along, and everything changed again, because all of that power, all of that potential was now mobile, and it was able to come with you wherever you are. And here we've got a picture of the iPhone, and iDevices are really very, very inclusive. They've done like a Rolls-Royce job on inclusive design in iOS and in the hardware as well. And you know, we've got built-in high contrast here. You've also got built-in magnification. We'll look, in a moment, we'll look at the built-in voice, which is the way that I use my phone. It's called VoiceOver. And not only have you got this kind of power and the potential to level the playing field, you've also, it's taken out off your desk and it's put in your pocket, so you can have it wherever you are. And more than that, you've got all these different sensors. So you've got camera, you've got, you know, GPS, you've got so many different sensors in there that take the level of utility, the usefulness for people, not just people with disabilities, but everyone, to the next level. And we'll look at some of the applications of this extra smartness and extra mobility as we go through the afternoon. Now, you might think this is an empty slide. Well, it is an empty slide, apart from the logo. Because I'm going to show you a couple of apps that I use. So this is how I use my phone. And you probably can't see it here, so I'm going to AirPlay it up onto there. And to do that, I need to go into Control, go into AirPlay, go to Robin's laptop.
Selected. Robin's laptop. Mirroring.
Hasn't come up yet, sorry.
Selected. Robin's laptop. Mirroring. Robin's laptop. Mirroring. Switch button. On.
Okay.
Double tap to toggle setting.
Has that come up?
Yeah.
Oh, Java, go away. Great, so that Java update thing isn't over the top of what we're doing, is it?
No.
Okay, good. So can you see what I can see now? Yeah?
AirPlay mirroring.
Well,
You
not
can send
see.
everything on your phone to
Okay,
display
so
wirelessly.
you got what I've got. All right then. So I can move my finger around the screen.
Robin's laptop. Mirroring.
Oh,
AirPlay mirroring. You can
let's
send
go out
everything
of
on your phone. AirPlay. Done. Button.
done.
Control center.
Get rid of
AirPlay
Control
mode. Off.
Center.
Double tap. Calendar. Tuesday the 7th.
My kids use this phone, so I, deny any responsibility for things that come up that are totally inappropriate for me. So I can just move my finger around the screen.
Folder. 12 apps. Photography folder. 6 apps. 1 new item.
So it said photography folder, 6 apps, I think it said 1 new item, so there's something new going on in there. That's that little flag thing. And it said double tap to open, so I could double tap now anywhere on the screen. And because that last had focus, it will open up that folder.
Photography. Heading.
I can do a 2-finger tap on the screen to mute the text, mute the speech output. I can do a 2-finger scrub to close that.
Photography folder. 6 apps.
So you get the idea. I want to show you a couple of apps that sort of take the utility of the phone to another level. One thing that is relatively difficult for a blind person is to type on such a small screen. Now obviously we can use Siri and we can dictate, and I dictate things all the time. I'll just send a quick text. Tell my darling wife, missing you, XXX. So we all know that we can do stuff like that.
Your message to Judith and Christopherson says, missing you XXX.
Okay,
Ready to send it?
send. Is that not airplaying at the moment?
No.
Okay, sorry. Let's go back.
2:12 p.m. Control center. Airplane. Torch. Button. Airplay. Button.
Yeah.
Airdrop. Airplay. Button.
No, you're right, it has gone, sorry.
With airplane mirroring, you can send everything on Robin's laptop. Selected. iPhone. Robin's laptop.
Speaks so quickly.
iPhone. Done. Button.
Is that back now?
No. Oh, it's doing something. Looks like it's making a connection. It's just
Airplay. Heading. Done. Button.
It's not really.
Selected. iPhone. Robin's laptop.
Let's try that again. Technology.
great when it
Robin's laptop. Mirroring. Switch button. On. Double tap to toggle setting.
No,
Selected. Robin's laptop. Mirroring.
it says it's on my laptop.
Oh.
No.
Selected. iPhone.
Oh,
Robin's laptop.
yeah, it just keeps going back to my phone, doesn't it?
With airplane mirroring, you can send everything on your iPhone. Robin's laptop. Mirroring.
It's a good demonstration of how sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Selected.
We tested this before we started, so
With airplane mirroring, you can send everything.
yeah.
Robin's laptop. Selected. iPhone. Robin's laptop.
Yeah, it just keeps on bouncing back to my phone, doesn't it? Yeah, sorry about this.
It's alright. I think Dave might be able to help. Yeah, off and on again.
I'll tell you what, I'll do that then. I'll
3%
close.
battery power. Status bar item. Swipe down with 3 fingers to reveal the notification center.
I'm gonna
Swipe up with
close
3 fingers to reveal the control
reflector.
center. Double tap to scroll to top.
Exit reflector. And then bring it back.
Control center. Airplane mode. Off.
Let's try that then.
Double tap to toggle setting.
So,
Airdrop. Button. Torch. Button.
so it should be firing up again.
Yeah, it's got a welcome to reflector screen up.
Yep.
And then the little connection thing just came up and it's gone again.
Try. Okay. It's nothing to do with it being a demo, honest. Okay. Let's try that one more time.
Clock. Button. Torch. Airdrop. Button. Alert. You can make yourself off. Contacts only. Button.
Can't believe you just checked that.
Cancel.
I
Button.
know.
Torch.
You
Airplay.
know when you say
Button.
something and you think, I'll get this right, and then you think,
Airplay mirroring. You can
it's
send everything on your iPhone to
wrong.
Robin's laptop.
Even though he sat on it.
Select iPhone. Done. Button.
Looks like it's trying to connect again.
Selected. iPhone. Robin's laptop.
Might be one of these other Wi-Fi ones.
I've got a feeling we might need Dave
Selected.
because
Robin's laptop. Mirroring.
he said that the Wi-Fi doesn't allow 2 devices to be connected, and he did something, but whether that's gone,
It drops off really regularly on the guest Wi-Fi as well, so it might be worth getting Dave.
I think that's.
Control center.
Yeah.
Airdrop. Button.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm going to run off to...
Volume. 94%.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it's to do with.
Swipe up or down with 1 finger to adjust the
It's
value.
lost that. Okay. Well, I'll come back to demo that in a moment if that's all right. I'll just leave that. Actually, I'll close that for the moment. So the demos that I'll show you in a moment will lead nicely onto. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Great. Thanks. Thanks. Oh, sorry. Is he on the lead? Because somebody could just. Yeah. If someone's able to just hold him in the front row or something, that'd be great. Thanks. Okay.
He's a lot shorter than I am. I'm just going to
Thanks.
clean the coffee off your
Oh, sorry.
bike
Thanks.
or something.
Okay. So we'll get that sorted in a moment, but I'm going to show you a video clip of an app that I use all the time called Word Lens, and when we show you the demo of the apps in a moment, it uses the camera very extensively, and it uses the live video feed of the camera, and this app does that as well. In this case, it's to do translation, real-time translation. Now, this is so magical, this application. Well, I'll show it first, then I'll talk about it afterwards. that not opening? Does that come up all right?
We don't have an image, just we have a code. It might need to yeah.
Sorry. You have to shout when something like that. So as you can see, it's taking the video feed and it's analysing, it's looking for text, it's doing optical character recognition on that text, and then it's using Google Translate engine to change it into another language of your choice. But the super cool thing is, I'm sure you saw there, was that it was kind of retaining the original design of the thing that you're looking at. So it's kind of spookily changing it to retain the text, retain the colour, even the background image sometimes, and changing it to a different language. And this sort of smartness of assisting people to be able to process things that they otherwise wouldn't be able to, in this case translating it into a different language, and this layering of augmented reality is incredibly helpful. Obviously for everybody it's helpful, you know, from a convenience point of view. You don't have to get your pocket, you know, your phrase book out of your pocket. But for someone who is blind or you know, literacy impaired, dyslexia, etc., or a cognitive impairment, it's really difficult to use these phrase books. I can't obviously use anything on paper, and to be able to look up those things on my phone would be very difficult, or to ask Siri all the time to translate things for me. But to just be able to point it at something and have it spoken back to you. I use my phone all the time for something similar, and when we get that app up and running, I'll show you how that works. But
would you like to do that now?
is Dave here?
Well,
Oh, sorry.
we have Andy, who is Dave's glamorous assistant.
Andy. So we had AirPlay working, but now it's not, and I don't know whether Dave did something to get two devices to speak on the same network. He did like a hack, do you know what I mean?
Okay. Can I? Is it on?
Yeah.
Voiceover off. Airplane mode off.
We're cooking.
Toggle setting.
So,
Settings. Airplane mode. Wi-Fi. CLI Academy feed.
is that still coming up all right?
Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Calendar. Tuesday the 17th of June.
I was going to show an app. Now let me go back to, oh sorry. I'm going to go back to the slideshow. I'm going to go to the right slide. Okay, that's a blank slide, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's come up?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I'll do it quickly while it's still working. Open talking goggles. So,
Levels. Flashes off. Button.
I mentioned how the benefits of having these extra sensors like the camera are really, really important and useful for people, and particularly for a blind person who has two eyes that don't work. It's really good to have one that's with you that's got some smarts on it that will help. So this one is called Talking Goggles. It's a mainstream app. Hopefully this will work. I'm just pointing it at my wife's Vaseline. Okay, I'm not sure if we've got
Change language now in. Button. Flashes off. Button.
I'm not sure if we've got sufficient bandwidth, but we'll give it a go, because this should just say, now this is a circular tin, so I've got no idea about the orientation, but it's not actually saying it, so this could be a bandwidth thing, or it could be a light thing. I'll try that again in a second. Let's just try another one. I've got a couple of other things here. I grabbed a CD from the cupboard. Are you going to say something?
Clapton.
Okay. Normally it would say Cream of Clapton, actually, so, because I tried this earlier.
I think it's the reflection on the top of the swirl.
Oh, okay.
7. Clapton.
Okay, and I stole this off the cover of my daughter's Harry Potter book as well. Now this has had some coffee put on it, but hopefully, oops, it'll be all right. Let's have a look. Are you going to say that? So basically you can put anything underneath this and it will read it.
J.K. Rowling Harry Potter.
Are you going to say which one though? For someone who can't see, at least knowing which book it is.
J.K. Rowling Harry Potter.
No. Again, it said it said earlier. Yeah, it did. It said it was.
J.K. Rowling Harry Potter ATHLY Hallows.
Maybe there was only half of it in the screen. We'll try this one more time. So this, I think, is magical. You know, it's basically using a live video feed and it's searching the entire internet for matches. And are you going to do that? No. Oh. It usually does say Vaseline intensive something or other. Okay. Maybe you guys could try this later on. No. Okay. It could be the light. It could be the bandwidth, because obviously that's it's literally doing a live, you know, video feed, searching, processing every last thing that it's looking at. So this is called Talking Goggles. Now this is a mainstream app. It's designed for people to be able to get products, you know, off the shelf in the supermarket or whatever. When it recognizes it, you can tap on it. You can get serving instructions. You can get ingredient details. Because it's got GPS in the phone, you can even see, you know, where it's cheaper to buy around the corner, for example. So this is a mainstream app. It's using, you know, the camera, which is a mainstream part of a mainstream phone. But because it's an inclusive device, it's massively useful by, you know, for people like myself who would rely on having that sort of recognition, much more so than people whose eyes work. So I use this all the time. I'm out and about. I point it at a row of shops, and it will come up telling me what, you know, which shop. I said I was in front of Poundland the other day. So you know, it tells you all of those things. And if we let's have a look. Actually, I'll quickly demo another app, and then I'll come back to that in a moment, because with the screen share, I can't show something up on the screen to make this recognise it, but we'll do that in a sec. Open Flexi. Yep.
Can I just ask a question about that Talking Goggles one?
Mm-hmm.
Is it pull it from everything on the web, like you just suggested? Is it based on like how people tag certain images or certain video or anything?
Absolutely not, no, because you can do text in a moment, which we will show you when we stop sharing. So it does OCR of text. If it doesn't recognise the image, it looks for text. If it does recognise the image, I mean, no is the answer, because things that it has never seen before, that wouldn't be text, you know, that wouldn't be tagged in a month of Sundays, it does recognise. So it's looking for comparable. I mean, yeah, it must get the information somehow about what you're looking at. So, you know, the image that is on the internet somewhere should have, you know, the tag Harry Potter or whatever associated with it. But yeah, it's not reliant on you doing anything as the user yourself. So here's an app.
Alert. This is a copy and clear. Button.
I'll just close that. So can you see this coming up on the screen?
Yeah.
Great. So this is an app called Flexi. And this, you know, as you probably know, in iOS 8, like there has been in Android for a long time, there are going to be third-party keyboards available. And this is a particularly useful one for a blind person. But again, it's not a blind app, you know, it's not meant for disabled people necessarily. It's just an app that helps people who find it difficult to type because they've got big sausage fingers on a little small screen. So, or if you're a blind person, for example, or you have a vision impairment and you can't get the keys spot on each time. So with this, it kind of does pattern matching. So you can tap away and you can miss half the keys and it will kind of forgive you and it'll just look at the patterns. And I'll show you how it works. So I am
Truths. Ground. Trough. Fried.
maybe I got that completely wrong.
Deleted fried.
Typing.
Trough.
Typing. Using.
Using.
A fantastic.
Tutoring.
No.
Fantastic.
Fantastic
All. Ski.
app called.
Futurist.
No.
Sorority. Forester. Sprinter.
Maybe I got a number.
Deleted
Let me
sprinter.
try that. Flexi.
Flexi.
Okay.
I'm typing using a fantastic app called Flexi.
So I don't know if you can hear that. I am typing using a fantastic app called Flexi. Now, I probably got half of those, you know, I tapped in the wrong place for half of the keys that I were doing. But as you saw there, it kind of guessed at the nearest word, and then you can flick down to get alternatives, and you can flick right. With the iOS alternative keyboard and the Android alternative keyboard, it will give the option of either flicking or tapping the spacebar. Here we haven't got a spacebar, I don't think, have we? Because that would just get in the way, and I don't want to accidentally hit a space and make it think that I finished the word. So something like this is incredibly inclusive, incredibly empowering, and for some people it's a convenience, and for other people it's a lifesaver, like myself. If you're on a busy train or something where it's noisy and you can't do dictation, and typing on the normal on-screen keyboard would be really problematic, then something like this is a real lifesaver. So I'll turn off that AirPlay. I'll just turn that off. And I'd like somebody, a victim, a volunteer, to... So I'll go back to talking goggles. Can I have a volunteer? So here we've got the Eiffel Tower. Is there someone? So great. So I was in London the other day and I pointed it at the gherkin and it told me what it was, or rather my wife said, look, there's that funny building over there, what is it? So if you could just point that up at the screen, hopefully it'll say, or maybe it won't because we haven't done very well so far.
Do I need to press anything?
No. Oh. If you could try not to get any border in, just the picture in the middle, if that makes sense, because then it would be like we're really there and we're not just looking at a screen.
I think I was a bit too close to it.
Okay.
So mixed with it.
So normally speaking, it would say Eiffel Tower. No. I'll blame it on the bandwidth. Yeah?
We all blame it. It did it.
It said Eiffel Tower. Okay, good. What about this one then? T. You probably chopped it off at the T maybe. Anyway, okay, thank you very much. So, yeah. So it recognized text as well. Now obviously that doesn't, thank you so much, that doesn't exist on the internet, that slide. So it's just doing OCR. So a bit like the word lens video you saw earlier, it's looking for text, it's recognizing what the text is. In this case, it's speaking it out. I could then copy and paste that into something else. I could be reading my mail and then have an electronic version available after that. Or it could be recognizing, the menu in front of a restaurant or something. So this is incredibly empowering technology, and that Talking Goggles app by, I think it's Sparkling Apps or something, like $1.99 or something, is incredibly useful, and it's not aimed at blind people or disabled people, yet it's replacing something that would have cost literally hundreds of pounds if it was a specialist, product built, and sold to blind people. Great, I'll just close that. Do open the window if you want to, because it is getting hugely...
Would you like me to open?
Go for it, yeah, we can see. Should we see how noisy it is?
Just
Yeah.
it's noisy.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry, Archie.
So the theme that's coming out here is we don't care if it's meant for disabled people or not. At AbilityNet, we're real pragmatists. If you've got something that's inaccessible on your website, for example, we won't say, oh, take that down immediately. We would look at what other options are available. We would look at how the inclusive experience or potential of your website to meet all your customers' needs, or your employees, if it's an intranet, etc., can still be maintained, can still be realized by alternative options that are available. It's all about choice, and not every single channel needs to be totally inclusive if there are other options available. So let me give you a quick video clip of somebody using, this chap was, this is way back, several years ago now, when the iPhone 4 first came out, and FaceTime, which is the sort of video iOS to iOS video calling service. And as soon as it became available, people, in this case, people with a hearing impairment, were using it to overcome their impairment to do signing to each other using FaceTime. And this chap was so impressed that he whipped out his phone and he recorded them doing it.
They're able to communicate very easily with the iPhone 4. They're able to talk to each other. And if that's not awesome, I don't know what is.
So he was so kind of impressed that he had to record it. And you might think, well, that's an obvious use of that technology, but hopefully you guys all the time will be looking at things and thinking, well, blimey, that could be incredibly useful for that particular audience. And never assume that people aren't going to be using things in a whole variety of ways and leveraging all the options available to overcome their particular need. Now, the main issue about mobile computing is that arguably there's not just people with a disability with a capital D like myself, for example, But everybody is disabled sort of on a daily basis, you know, temporarily because of their environment. So if you're trying to access a small screen in a sunny environment and the text size in the app or the website that you're looking at isn't very generous, or it's a, you know, fancy font, or the color contrast isn't great, so it's difficult to read, you know, that orange on white text or whatever it might be, then arguably you're temporarily disabled by the sun and by the small screen and by the poor, you know, accessibility or the poor design of the thing that you're looking at. And just as people who have got a 24/7 visual impairment, they need that color contrast, they need that decent font size, you know, on every day. And okay, you might say, well, you could just zoom in on that web page, for example. You can't do that with an app, of course. But if you zoomed in, then you have horizontal scrolling, which is not ideal and, you know, might be a pain for you guys. But for someone with a vision impairment, that would be really, really challenging. So people who are using computing on the go in these extreme environments are arguably temporarily disabled, you know, all the time. So accessibility isn't about designing for us disabled people. It's about designing in an inclusive way so that things can be accessed effectively on every platform and in every environment. The next clip I'm going to show you is somebody who's temporarily disabled. In this case, she's got laryngitis and she's on a blind date. And she's using her phone and some communication software on the phone to speak for her on her blind date. I won't show all of this because I've got so much to get through, but also because it gets a bit saucy later on. So, you know, watch it for yourself. I'll send around the link. So yeah, let's just watch this one.
Hey, I'm sorry I was late. Hey, I'm sorry I'm late. Parking was crazy. I haven't been here before, but...
That's okay. It's nice to finally meet you.
It's good to meet you. That came out of your iPhone.
Yeah, I have laryngitis, so I will be communicating through my new iVoice application. I programmed all of my responses for the night.
Okay, you're writing it down somehow and it's reading it back to me.
No, all my responses are pre-programmed for tonight.
So you know everything I'm going to say tonight?
Well, I know how I'm going to respond to everything you are going to say tonight.
Okay, then what's my favorite color?
I don't know what your favorite color is, silly.
But you knew I was going to say, what's my favorite color?
I knew I was going to respond. I don't know what your favorite color is, silly.
Well, it's blue, in case you were wondering.
Oh, my brother's favorite color is blue too.
Okay, hold on. If you knew your brother's favorite color was blue too, then you would know my favorite color was blue when I asked you what's my favorite color moments ago. Because I'm the two. I'm the two in that statement you made.
I have to go to the bathroom.
Alright. I'll just be here waiting to see what happens. And see what fate has in store for us. Because not like I can fast forward and see what your responses are for the rest of the night. It's not like I have that power or ability. Because I don't have a magic iPhone that just knows the future.
I'll just stop it there. So, yeah, have a look at that. So whether you're temporarily disabled by, in this case, you know, just temporarily lost her voice, or whether you've got a permanent communication need, like Professor Stephen Hawking, you know, there are apps, and in this case, you know, it was an inclusive app, so anybody could use it. I would be able to use it if I lost my voice. And because it's an app on a standard mobile platform, instead of costing £6,000 or £7,000, which is what a standard a specialist communication device would cost that does exactly the same thing, this is like, you know, $199 or something, and there are dozens to choose from, so you can get exactly the right one that works the way you like it. Now, this level of smarts is fantastic, and it's really, really useful, and I've shown you a couple of apps where, you know, it's very beneficial. But you still have to take your phone out of your pocket, and just imagine the utility for somebody who can't see like myself if you had that camera looking wherever you were looking. Now, there obviously are constraints with battery usage at the moment and privacy concerns. I'm not going to kind of get into the politics of glass, for example, at the moment. But to kind of give you an idea of how this level of smarts that is able to leverage the power of all these different sensors and constantly looking wherever you're looking, etc., and connected with your phone, or perhaps just working solo, is incredibly useful. Here's a quick video showing, introducing the sort of concept of glass. This is before it became more readily available, but just to kind of open up for anyone that isn't familiar with the sort of potential use cases of glass and this sort of augmented reality that we saw with Word Lens, where it's kind of providing you useful information actually layered over your environment.
This morning, Google released the new trailer from its Glass project. Is augmented reality the next big step in our everyday lives? Hey, I'm Anthony, and if you have not seen this new Glass video, it's pretty awesome. It's showing people getting live directions, taking and sending photos and text, video chatting, translating foreign languages as they go through their daily routine. Well, the Google employee version of a daily routine anyway, which is, I guess, piloting vintage airplanes, taking trapeze lessons, and snowboarding. Thanks, stock options. Google's Glass is really the first huge push to get useful augmented reality into the hands of everyone, starting with developers who can pre-order their unit now for $1,500 and get it in 2014. Now, a lot of the stuff in the trailer might make it seem pretty silly. For instance, I'm very rarely going to need to share the ice sculpture I'm carving on Google+. But I do love the bit where the guy is walking through the airport and his gate and flight information pop up automatically. That sort of thing, that sort of instantaneous, effortless access to important information has been the main function of augmented reality so far. Soldiers have had head-mounted displays in the field since 2005. And jet fighter cockpits use heads-up displays. Both of them overlay important target and navigational information, allowing a pilot or a soldier to make these split-second instinctive decisions without hesitation. Automobile manufacturers have already showed off how that would work in a car, highlighting important signs and lanes, overlaying traffic information. It's going to be hard to miss your exit if it's glowing, and there's a big arrow pointing to it, right?
I'll just pause it there. So, absolutely right. A lot of the technologies that we're going to be looking at from now on have their origins in DARPA, which is the American Defense Research Agency. But nonetheless, they are very, very useful when applied to everyone's everyday life, but also disproportionately to people with disabilities too. So he was talking about augmented reality there, and it being aware of your environment and being able to give you useful information. That that was a goal of Glass, and since it released its GDK, which is its Glass developer kit, a few months ago, we've started to see some really good applications of that. And one of them is this one called Nav, which we'll have a quick blast of. We won't show the whole video again, apologies. Where it gives you directions. It accepts voice commands, or you can tap on the thing. This idea of choices about input and output. I wouldn't be using the heads-up display, for example. I've tried on Glass, and I was able to use the bone-conducting microphone behind my ear instead of the heads-up display to speak out what is available, what the information that's being displayed is. So as long as you've got choices, as long as you've thought about people being able to access things in a different way, then you're catering for, you're being inclusive and you're catering for as many people as possible. So let's have a quick blast of this one.
I'm Sophia. I'm a product manager at Glass. I'm going to show you how to navigate wall 1.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'm on the Glass marketing team, and we use Nav to get to family activities.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm on the Glass team, and I love to use Glass for navigating while I'm cycling.
Okay, Glass. Get directions. Sushi. Okay, the soda sushi on capture. Shortest possible walking distance. Oh, sushi talking. Alright, lead the way. Hold on. I don't think it's that. Walk quick. Okay, Glass. Get directions to park. There's a nearby one. It's called Sierra Vista. We're going to go right here, and then at the light, you want to make a left.
Okay, Glass. Get directions to Paradise Beach County Park. Off we go.
right lane, and then you want to stay in the left lane. Okay, remember the car.
So very, very useful, but for people who have a vision impairment or a cognitive impairment, it's incredibly useful to have that information, that additional information, particularly in that sort of augmented reality way, where it's layered over the top, it knows where you're looking, it's got a compass built in, it's got GPS, it knows where you are, it knows your orientation, and it can layer on top really useful information. Now the camera that's built into glass, as I mentioned, it's quite controversial. There's a lot of etiquette growing up around glass, and gents, men, for example, when they're going into the gents, need to put their glass up on top of their heads so that people don't get freaked out about where their camera's pointing. And there are lots of applications of that camera that, we saw talking goggles before, and I'm particularly excited about when glass comes down to a much more sort of sane price tag, to be able to use talking goggles and have it look wherever I'm looking, along with a raft of other apps that I use that use the camera. But here's one for people. This is Facebook, who obviously they're a big data company. They want to know absolutely everything about you. They know a spooky amount already, but they want to be able to know everything about your photos that you upload to your Facebook page. And to do that, they've invested very heavily in facial recognition. And this facial recognition is actually much, much more accurate at guessing people's faces, regardless of the orientation, than humans are about properly identifying people from photos. So let's just watch a quick bit of this clip.
Facebook's newest technology is going face-to-face with, well, your face. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Dimberg from Buzz60. Facebook developed a program called Deepface, which researchers say can determine whether two photographed faces are the same person with about 97% accuracy. The site already has facial recognition software that can suggest friends to tag when uploading a photo, but those results aren't nearly as precise. Deepface uses a complex algorithm that combines 2D and 3D face alignment along with intermittent forms of data. For example, the developers successfully recognized this photo as actor Sylvester Stallone. For now, it's just a research project, so don't worry about those unflattering photos you untagged popping up anytime soon.
I'll just pause it there. So actually that's out of date now, because they do actually use this in anger now. And as we saw there, it's much less sensitive about the orientation of the photograph. It kind of uses several photos to get sort of a 3D rendering, and you can get lots of apps that do that as well. Take a couple of snaps from different angles and you can send a 3D sort of CAD model of that person to, or that object, whatever it is, to your 3D printer, and in seconds flat you've got kind of a mini version of that person. Now, if you combine that with the camera in glass, for example, or the umpteen different glass sort of clones that have sprung up, then you've got a really powerful, for example, someone like myself who can't see, to be able to spot people that you know and have it, either coming up on the heads-up display or have it being spoken to you about, whose faces, who in the vicinity, for example, and you can feed it all of your photos from your, friends, your Facebook friends, or from your, Twitter followers, profile pics, whatever it might be, and so it can very quickly learn everybody that you know, and it can be watching for them constantly. Similarly, if you've got somebody who's vulnerable, maybe they're bedbound, or maybe they, are in the home and need to be very careful about who comes to the door, you can get lots of Wi-Fi enabled webcams that you put in the little security hole in your front door, and it could be monitoring to see whether, and it could tell you whether it's somebody that it recognizes walking up your pathway before you open the door. And one particular application of that, again, it could be quite controversial, but we're not going to kind of get into the politics of things at the moment, is to recognize people with a criminal record.
A new company called Hyperlayer is developing an app for Google Glass that will use facial recognition software to identify anybody with a criminal record who happens to walk past you on the street or in a store. Here is a promotional video demonstrating the software in action. For Google Glass, the head-mounted display, the smartphone on your face, that's due out later this year in 2013. And while this may appear to some as a good idea to help keep people safe, the social ramifications and the disastrous consequences of Google Glass are only beginning to be identified. And
I'll just pause it there. I think he's got a criminal record, this chap. I think he's worried. So anyway, this is last year's video. Obviously, Glass wasn't out yet, but already they're seeing the application of it. And I don't know whether that actually made it through to being glassware, software for Glass, an actual app for Glass. But, that people are leveraging that kind of potential that you have for Glass. And obviously, it doesn't have to be running on Glass. It could be anything that's got a camera. And, you could imagine that the vulnerable people in society could have, with the cooperation of the local police force perhaps, or maybe they're just, there's a community-sourced project where everybody in the paper, the local paper or wherever who have got their photos in there for criminal activities, somebody's madly scanning them all in and building a database so that vulnerable people could leverage this kind of functionality to feel a little bit more safe while they're out and about or perhaps at home. Now, another huge group of people, very significantly large, probably larger than you might think, who have difficulties on the Asperger spectrum or the autistic spectrum. Well, Asperger's is like towards the sort of higher functioning end of the autistic spectrum, who have difficulties in recognizing people's emotions. And once again, I'll show you the clip, but the software does it better than us mere mortals about recognizing people's particularly subtle emotions.
We are Emotioned, the leading authority on applying machine learning for facial expression analysis. We enable technology to deliver a much more natural and intuitive user experience. Emotion delivers an innovative solution designed to enable companies and cutting-edge developers to detect and analyze the emotional responses of subjects in real time. The solution processes primary emotions, including joy, sadness, surprise, anger, fear, disgust, and contempt. Our robust system also detects rapid, subtle micro-expressions, as well as overall positive and negative sentiment and blended composites of 2 or more emotions, all of which comprise critical facial expression data, analysis, and insights.
I'll just pause it there. So I've got another video clip of this software. I'm not sure if it's the same software or similar software in action, showing the different components of different emotions. And you could imagine, if you combined this with Glass or some similarly unobtrusive camera, it would be incredibly useful for people with Asperger's or autism that would otherwise find it difficult, and also people like myself. And I've got no idea whether people, what people's facial expressions are, whether they're, falling asleep or looking very bored or whatever it might be. So, this would be really, really useful for me as well, and I would obviously have it spoken to me. If it detected amusement, it could say, tell another one or something like that. So, that would be really, really useful, and that you could combine with any, head-mounted camera, whatever it might be, or buttonhole camera or something. And as long as you've got the right output method that suits you, that choice, whether you need to have it speech or a little heads-up display or whatever it might be, you could have a little haptic feedback thing in your pocket, which gave 1 buzz for, happy, 2 buzzes for sad, that sort of thing. So it's all about choice, and the technology is definitely there, and it's incredibly mature. It just needs to be applied in the right ways, and that is happening, at a pace, really. So just to make you aware of some of the sort of capabilities of technologies and how it's being used. As I mentioned before, there were lots of clones of Glass, and here's an example of one where it's arguably taken it to the next level.
Hi, it's David Belcher, Laptop Magazine. We're here today at CES 2014 looking at the Meta Pro augmented reality glasses. So these are really very different from what you've seen from Google Glass. They give you a complete immersive binocular experience. They're 720p, 16 times the resolution of Google Glass. They are in front of your face. They're not over on your eyebrow where you have to kind of peer out of your field of view to use them. And the goal is to really have an immersive experience where everything you see kind of comes through the glasses and can be filtered You can filter out maybe in the future ads. You can change sort of what you see to put augmented reality stuff on top of it, do face recognition and sort of learn more about a person that you're looking at or an object that you're looking at. All the benefits of augmented reality, plus this is hooked up to a Core i5 processor. So you could actually use this to run Windows or Mac OS or Linux.
I'll just pause it there. So, you know, he's mentioned some of the things that we've been talking about here earlier, and you know, this is like Oculus Rift, kind of eat your heart out really. You know, it's high res, it's fully immersive like Oculus, but it's got a much beefier processor and that sort of thing. And you could run your desktop, you know, applications on there if you wanted to. It's to a certain extent dealt with the depth of field problem that Oculus has, because it looks like it's a couple of feet out. It's sort of hovering a little bit further out. I don't know how they do it, but have a look on the rest of the video or follow the links that are associated with that video on YouTube. So this idea of augmented reality, I think, is going to become much more prolific as these I mean, obviously that was a prototype, it was very goofy. As these things are miniaturized, as battery, I mean, the main shortcoming or the main sort of obstacle to progress at the moment isn't processor speed, it isn't sensors, sensitivity, it's the battery and the fact that, you know, the best battery technology is still quite poor about driving these things for any length of time whilst keeping them a decent, you know, a modest weight. Here's another quick example of one where, in this case, they've added in the idea of having hand-mounted sensors to be able to bring your hands into the equation as well.
We started off with these two arms floating in space and they stay in exactly the same spot. You look down and it felt completely detached from your own experience. One of the things we found early on, though, was when we put our arms into exactly the same position as we saw on the screen and just held them there, there was this weird little magical moment where just for a second it felt like those were your arms that you were looking at. Once we started adding motion to these and having the arms react to your arms moving around, that illusion went from something that just lasted for a moment to something that would last for the entire experience.
I'll just mute it while it's carrying on. I've got no idea what it's doing now, actually. After they stop talking, I forget what goes on afterwards. So yeah, that's really useful. You could imagine really good applications for gaming, as we have with all of the things that we've got here, but also for learning, you know, to be able to remotely learn how to do a particular skill or to get familiar with a particular sort of situation, environment. So those are the sort of mainstream applications, but for people who have learning difficulties, for example, or they have severe motor difficulties, so that in the, you know, mobility is a challenge for them, to be able to inhabit a virtual space like that and not actually inhabit it with being able to manipulate objects and things like that as well is incredibly useful, and, you know, gives them a lot more broad potential for experiences and you know, being able to learn things that they're otherwise quite challenging sort of existence or circumstances might otherwise allow. Now I'm going to show you briefly a very flippant, a very frivolous application of augmented reality, but this is actually a bus shelter. It does really exist in London. The video probably speaks for itself.
There's a little camera right here.
So, a completely frivolous application of augmented reality, but I thought I'd show that anyway. You know, what can be used for complete entertainment or freaking people out at the bus stop can also be used to really help people who otherwise would struggle in everyday situations by giving them that extra information layered on top of reality. Let's briefly kind of go even more wearable. Being able to add onto your smart device, like your phone in your pocket, for example, a number of different peripherals that can communicate with it and that can give you information, even in a more timely, more accessible fashion. You know, you might miss, how many of us have got our phone on silent, and because we've got a big fat bum, we can't feel it vibrating in our pocket. So, you know, to have something on your wrist which gives you that notification, or, you know, to be able to allow you to quickly interact in a very sort of simple way with your other devices, is obviously the appeal of wearable. And let's have a quick video introducing the sort of concepts involved.
With a wearable device, you can be going about the rest of your day and just glance down at your wrist, and the information you need is there right away without even having to ask for it. Watches are good at telling time, but imagine having useful, actionable information there precisely when you need it automatically. Today we're announcing that Android is extending to wearables. To bring this vision to life, we're working with consumer electronics manufacturers, chip makers, and fashion brands who are committed to fostering an ecosystem of watches in a variety of styles, shapes, and sizes.
So we designed an entirely new UI specifically for this form factor. And it's really based around voice and contextual information that's, you know, reactive to your surroundings. Well, we put a lot of thought into how simple this has to be. It needs to be incredibly fast, incredibly glanceable. There's really only two components: the information that's most relevant to you, and the ability to speak to it, do a quick command. All right, let's take a look. All the information you need when you start your day, it's right there. Today's weather, when your next meeting begins, how long it'll take to travel there, and important updates. Think about the times you need information most urgently. The stuff you care about moves with you from place to place. So you never miss out on the important stuff. You can respond naturally just by speaking. Reply, thanks, we'll get you something from New York.
I'm just going to mute it while it carries on. So this is called Android Wear, and it's their version of Android for wearables. Now there's been dozens, or at least 24 watches, smartwatches, since the rumours started to fly about Apple's iWatch. And none of them have really kind of stuck, apart from maybe the Pebble, which is one of the simplest ones and certainly has the longest battery life. But now that Android has thrown its kind of hat into the ring with regards to wearables, and it's going to work with a range of manufacturers, then there's much more potential for devices to be platform independent. You don't want your smartwatch to only talk to one device, with the possible exception of Apple, who will be bringing out a smartwatch, we are pretty confident now, in October. And it will have some sort of iOS version on it. And I don't know whether it will talk to Android or any other phones at all, but kind of Apple is like a law unto itself. So because that's such a big ecosystem, it's probably not the end of the world that it's proprietary. That's just how Apple do things. Let's watch another quick video of how this functionality will be used kind of on the go. Again, I won't show all of this video, so apologies.
She's got a jellyfish warning. Let's go to Zuma.
Morning, kids.
Reply, be there in 2.
Again, I'm just going to mute it, and apologies. So this is aspirational to a certain extent. The devices they're talking into are, I'm sure, not real devices at this stage, but they're not showing anything that the SDK for Android Wear isn't capable of doing already. So we are going to see devices like these. There's already one like the Moto 360, which is the sort of flagship example, like the Nexus range, I guess, for Android itself, of Android Wear devices, a kind of a template for other people to follow. Now let's move on from wearables to something, you know, we've been talking about mobile, and you probably can't get more mobile than being driven around. And you probably are aware, you know, the Street View cars in America have been driving around for the last 5 years now. They just had a milestone recently, which was 700,000 miles driven without, you know, completely autonomously with someone in the driving seat, because in all bar 3 of the states in America, California, Nevada, and I can't remember the other one, who have laws where you actually don't have to have anyone in the driver's seat at all, and they've never had an accident. They've gone 700,000 miles. One of them was rear-ended once, but because the data, the richness of data that these cars gather, which is why insurance companies are particularly excited about it, because they are better drivers, they are safer drivers than us mere mortals, and they've got this fantastic data which can conclusively prove that, you know, it was driving in the speed limit, it wasn't their fault, etc., etc. So let's watch a quick video, well, it's sort of 3 or 4 minutes of what one of these cars looks like in action.
Over here at the stop sign, we're getting the radars and lasers to check and make sure there's nothing coming on the way. Like flat myself. Hold down very hard, man. They don't die. Hey, ready up for a taco? Yeah. What do you want to do today, Steve? I'm all tacos on myself. All right, well, let's go get a taco in the drive-thru. Very well. How are you today? This is some of the best driving I've ever done.
95% of my vision is gone. I'm well past legally blind. You lose your timing in life, everything takes you much longer. There are some places that you cannot go, there are some things that you really cannot do. Where this would change my life is to give me the independence and the flexibility to go the places I will want to go and need to go when I need to do those things.
Yeah, I've got places I have to go. It's been nice, you know, it's been nice.
So a bit of a twist there. I don't know how many people realised. It doesn't sort of give it away earlier on, does it, that he can't see? So obvious applications for the disabled community. I'm particularly excited about this development of you know, the advent of autonomous driving, and it really is a very mature technology. You know, the sensors, the processing power, they are very, very robust, and to sort of prove to the world, to make it kind of more acceptable a technology, a less scary technology. A few weeks ago, Google produced this set of cars, and if we thought that sort of the car sharing capabilities that autonomous driving represents, then you haven't seen anything until you look at the size of these cars, because you could fit 4 times as many of these little babies on the street as your average size cars. This is a car that they were letting people have a go on at a recent event in America.
Today, we have something extra special for you guys, and you guys will be some of the first people outside of our team and outside of Google to ever drive it.
It was a big decision for us to go and start building our purpose-built vehicles for this. And really, they're prototype vehicles. They were a chance for us to explore what does it really mean to have a self-driving vehicle. But in the small amount of time we've been working on it, we have functional prototypes, and it's exciting.
It's really cool. It was like really kind of a space age experience.
You sit, relax, you don't need to do nothing. It knows when you need to stop, it knows when you need to go. It actually rides better than my own car. Yes.
What she really liked was that it slowed down before it went around a curve and then accelerated in the curve. She's always trying to get me to do it that way.
That's the way I learned in high school driver's ed.
So if I had a self-driving car, I could spend more time hanging out with my kids or helping them with their homework, even just tending to them, finding out how their day was and not having to wait till you get home and have dinner and all that. So pretty good.
Human feeling of it is very well engineered, and it is very smooth. There's nothing that makes you feel the least bit threatening. It's impressive. I'm totally in love with this whole concept.
Our lives are made up of lots and lots of little things. And a lot of those little things for most people have to do with getting from place to place in order to connect and do things, and be with people, go places that they need to go and do things. And so there's a big part of my life that's missing, and there's a big part of my life that self-driving vehicles bring back to me. This is the first step for us, and it's really exciting to see the progress we've made. The opportunity for people to just move around and not worry about it, it's going to be incredibly empowering and incredibly powerful for people.
I love this!
Was that the same chap in the other video? Yeah. All right. So obviously, you know, it's the obvious disability angle that they are highlighting here, along with so many other reasons why, you know, autonomous driving is incredibly, you know, has such potential to revolutionize people's habits. You know, car ownership might not necessarily be the same in 10 years' time when, you know, we only use our cars for 10% of the time, some people much less. So to each own a car and to have it using a parking space, particularly in inner cities where your destination is or whatever, doesn't make any sense at all. To be able to just call one and use it for that amount of time and be working and productive in the meantime, regardless of whether you've got a disability or not, would be fantastic. Here's a quick, well, couple-of-minute video showing the sort of inside of the car from a functionality point of view. Google Ventures, which is the venture capitalist arm of Google, have just invested, now get this, $258 billion, not in one go, because that's even more money than Apple has, for example, so they haven't got that in their back pocket, but they have committed $258 billion over the next few years to produce a fleet of 250,000 self-driving cars for Uber, who you probably know are the taxi company that you can call from your app on your phone, etc. So here's a taxi. This is in Berlin. One of the sort of prototypes that uses the Google Street View technology, autonomous car technology. But we get an insight into how, you know, through the iPad app, etc., that they're using to be able to kind of get behind the scenes and see what data is being crunched as it's driving along.
Autonomous Labs proudly
proudly presents how to call an autonomous taxi in Berlin. Arturo is just leaving his hotel in Berlin. He decides to call a taxi using his iPad. The iPad has a GPS unit and knows Arturo's location in Broaden. Pressing a button, Arturo's coordinates are sent to an autonomous taxi. There's no driver inside, but the car receives Arturo's location and starts driving toward the hotel. Arturo can follow the car's position on his iPad screen. Since Arturo is one of the developers of the autonomous car, he can also watch the data from the laser scanners in real time. And here it is, the first autonomous taxi in Berlin. Inside the car, Arturo can use his iPad to tell the car where he wants to go. To find out more, visit our website at www.autonomous.
I'll just mute it there. So that kind of gave you an insight into the data crunching, etc. Now, obviously, the UI, how you call the cab, you know, whether you can issue voice commands when you're inside the cab, whether you'll be interacting with like a kind of a Johnny taxi type person who's sitting in the front seat, whatever it might be, you know, all of that needs to be thrashed out in the kind of commercial products that are going to be rolling out onto the streets, if you forgive the pun. And that's really important because are they going to be inclusive? You know, are there going to be enough taxis that have wheelchair access? Are the taxis going to have like these voice announcements like you get on trains and buses, which I rely on because I'm really looking forward to be driven to my destination, but I need to know that I've got there. I don't kind of want to accidentally get out at the traffic lights because I think we've arrived because it's not telling me that, you know, no, we haven't got there yet, you know, destination not on the left or whatever. So that's, you know, all of that needs to be thrashed out. And like with so many things, unless you're thinking in an inclusive way, you know, the accessibility, the inclusiveness of the product, the potential that it has kind of hangs in the balance. If you don't think about it as you know, from start to finish, then the final product might not be as inclusive and it might not be able to be used by such, you know, a broad audience. So you probably saw in the kickoff of the World Cup last week that there was a bionic exoskeleton involved. I don't know whether you saw that. You probably blinked and missed it because it was in the opening ceremony. It was over to the side and he just kind of gave the ball a little kick with his bionic suit. You might have caught, though, Claire Lomas, who was walking the London Marathon last year, and we'll have a look at her in a moment. But first, let's see this bionic suit being shown by the developers over at Berkeley for the first time.
Very sleek. She's looking good, right? Standing tall. As you can hear, it is not much sound here. That's what's so important.
I'll just pause it there and we'll go and have a look at Claire in action, walking the London Marathon.
Although the finish line has long been cleared away and the crowds have dispersed, Claire Lomas is still walking the London Marathon. Paralysed from the waist down after a horse riding accident, she's making her way around the course with the help of a bionic suit.
Crossing the road make it so much more difficult. I can't feel my legs, so just looking down just to see where my feet are, how much I need to tilt, which I find quite challenging.
This is how Claire starts every race day, strapping herself into the robotic suit.
I'll just pause it, I'll mute it there. So her husband is kind of there behind her. He's not operating it at all. He's just helping, you know, there to catch her in case she stumbles, etc. It took her 14 days, I think it was, to walk the marathon. And when people heard that the London Marathon Committee didn't give her a medal for finishing the course, because you had to do it, I think, within 10 hours. There was this uproar, I don't know if you remember, and then loads of people who did finish sent her their medals. So she had like 24 medals sent by other people, which was kind of all right in the end, but everyone thought that was horrendous that they didn't give her a medal after putting in such effort. So this is a half kind of exoskeleton, really, in as much as she's paralysed only from the waist down. The one that we saw on the Olympics one was a full suit, and I think that's a difficult challenge to make, particularly as you're having to control both top and bottom half. And this chap had skin-mounted sensors underneath the helmet. I don't know if you saw, but skin-mounted sensors aren't particularly reliable, and so the challenge there was getting reliable, consistent movement, because the last thing you want is a very vulnerable person sort of toppling down a flight of stairs or whatever. And so actually embedding an invasive sensor into the brain to have a direct brain connection, which is what we see here, gives much better levels of control, but because it's invasive, it's they're trying to kind of crack it with the skin-mounted ones instead.
You're watching the most advanced brain-machine interface in action. Kathy Hutchinson is paralysed and unable to speak, but just by thinking, she's able to control the movements of this robotic arm and drink her morning coffee. She's part of a pioneering study run by researchers at Brown University in the US.
I'll just pause it there. So, like with a lot of things that I mentioned before about DARPA, the Defence Agency and research projects, people in the States, the heads-up displays that we saw earlier, that's a sort of DARPA originating technology to help fighter pilots to not need to look down at their display, to have it layered on top of their view as they're sort of watching. The autonomous driving, that was a DARPA project to help with military vehicles self-driving so that people aren't put at risk in the field. This sort of robotics, the exoskeleton, is actually again a military application to help people run faster, jump higher, that sort of thing in a conflict situation. So there are so many things that have like a military origin, but yet have very significant benefits when they're applied to people who have an impairment. And here's an example of that sort of invasive interface, or rather the power of how you can actually combine the artificial with the natural. Here we've got someone with a robotic hand. He's a drummer, and this hand actually, it can hold 2 drumsticks at the same time, and he can do things with this that no normal drummer could do with a kind of flesh and bone hand. I'll just mute it there. So this is actually connected to the nerve endings of the end of his, where his arm stops sort of thing. So this is literally like a Luke Skywalker scenario where, you just have to think and it will obey your thoughts. So we are at that point with this sort of cybernetic technology that can, Oscar Pistorius, for example, his carbon fiber legs actually gave him an unfair advantage over people who had normal legs, and so they had to adjust his carbon fiber legs because he obviously ran in both the Olympics and the Paralympics, but in the Olympics he had an unfair advantage, so they actually kind of had to handicap him, to make him be on the level playing field. So many times, you might find that a disabled person with the sort of assistive devices that they've been given that they now have the potential to use could actually be more effective, quicker, faster, stronger, you never know, than people that don't, that just have kind of normal appendages or vision or whatever it might be. And again, this military application of taking the response times and reducing them. So that's why this kind of brain interface is so prized a goal by the Defence Agency because they want to be able to cut down on the response times, etc. And here's another quick video of a very simple looking robot, but one nonetheless which is completely unbeatable when it comes to paper, scissors, stone, or rock, paper, scissors, as they say in the States. Because its response time is a third that of human response time. So as the human is about to form the paper, scissors, or stone, the robot can see what it's doing and can beat it every single time. So it's completely unbeatable because it's just too fast, basically. So that's why you can see the obvious military applications where things improve the response time. So I'll just mute that for a sec. So after I tweeted about this video once, somebody came back saying, okay, it's unbeatable, but it's got rubbish scissors. So yeah, we're not perfect yet. So there you go. And lest you think that these sort of robotics are beyond the realms of, people without a multi-billion-dollar budget or whatever it might be, this is literally a kind of a garage home sort of made out of Lego Mindstormers, which is the kind of Lego robotics set, a world champion Rubik's Cube solving robot made out of Lego. So like 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds or something. So yeah, that's scary. I'll just stop that. So yeah, we're going to see robotics more and more in the home, in the workplace, etc. And helping people be faster, stronger, overcome disability, that sort of thing. Going to finish off by showing a video. It's like 3 or 4 minutes. This is of a longer video, so the link that I'll send round is, I think, a 10-minute video showing a bunch of other things that people are using their eye devices for to overcome impairments, etc. And I've just picked out 2, or rather a colleague has cropped out of the the longer video, these couple of case studies.
Describe Rowan is when you see a duck on a Sunday morning. He's just floating along, looking so cute. But underneath the water, his legs are flapping 50,000 beats per minute. It's crazy, it's not pretty, and that's what I love about it. It's not like any other sport. I am a Paralympic bronze medalist in rowing. My first pair of legs have limitations to them. The feet would not move, so when I got on the erg and stretched my legs out, they would just be sticking straight up. So with this foot, I can connect with it through the Galileo app, and the foot can move up and down to whatever angle it needs to be. Before, if I wanted any changes, I would have to go into my prosthetist office to change the alignment in my foot, and you have to do it on their time. So this app has really allowed me to live my life instead of revolve my life around my prosthetics. It's really hard for girls to be growing up and not being able to wear like high heel shoes because you're limited by your prosthetics. And these feet and my app allow me to do that. And it's something just small as that like changed my life completely.
I had always known from a very early age I wanted to build software. When I lost my leg 3 years ago, I was really disappointed by the lack of technology in prosthetics. My first reaction was, this is something that I would really love to build an app for. The first first time I saw live streaming data coming from my prosthesis, it's then assured at my spine, like, this is where this technology should be. I can now control a part of my body using the iPhone, and I think that is going to become the standard as this level of care reaches more people.
Enrique is 10 years old now. He had been nonverbal his entire life. And then we came across Protocol on the iPad. And on the very first day, he says, "Hi, Mom, I love you." That was the beginning of my son speaking to me. I love you. I love you. And now, after 9 years, I know who my son is. I found out he's funny. I'm so cool, don't you think? He is a typical child now.
I think it's very gratifying to be able to make the tools that really help people like Enrique and his family. It's really nice to see how having an app that allows you to communicate can really open up the world in so many ways.
My name is Enrique Mendez.
In a way, it's just almost like magic, what's happening.
Can I give you a hug?
I'm pretty happy that I found something that can actually have a really direct impact on people.
I need help. You need help. I'll help.
Enrique's taught me that given the opportunity, anybody could learn to do anything.
Sorry about the edit at the end there. So we've kind of come full circle. We right at the beginning, we had, for example, the blind date lady who was temporarily needing a communication device, and Enrique there, he permanently needs a communication device, and he's able to use his iPhone or iPad, I don't know which it was he was using, but that replaces a very expensive piece of specialist kit that wouldn't have been available to everyone. So I'll just finish off with a clip from Professor Hawking. I mentioned him right at the beginning. He too has a communication device, as we talked about. He's using a specialist one, but at the end of the day, it's all technology, and it's about people having the right technology to fit their needs. This is his acceptance speech at every year. AbilityNet do a Technology for Good Awards, which is basically the sort of things that we've been looking at today, applying technology and changing people's lives. And he is making an acceptance speech. After he's done his speech, it goes on to show an advert, a BT advert, about how important it is to talk to each other. I might, because of time, just sort of crop that at the end, but by all means do have a look. It's quite a moving sort of piece that it goes on to talk about how communication is vital. But let's just listen to his words in kind of accepting this award for his achievements and his awareness raising that he's done to make people aware of the potential of technology.
I am delighted to accept this award as recognition for all the truly great things that disabled people can achieve when technology has given them the chance to shine. I was lucky to be born in the computer age. Without computers, my life would have been miserable and my scientific career impossible. AbilityNet continues to help disabled people in all walks of life, and the Technology for Good Awards remind us that technology is a vital part of human existence. They show us that the right tools in the right hands can help everyone, regardless of our frailties, to achieve our true potential and advance as a civilization. And I hope that the Technology for Good Awards will inspire people to think about the needs of everyone around them and make sure they can all benefit from the power of computers and the internet to change their lives for the better. For millions of years, mankind lived just like the animals. Then something happened, which unleashed the power of our imagination. We learned to talk. We learned to listen. Speech has allowed the communication of ideas, enabling human beings to work together.
Okay, I'm going to let it play.
To build the impossible. Mankind's greatest achievements have come about by talking. And its greatest failures by not talking. It doesn't have to be like this. Our greatest hopes could become reality in the future. With the technology at our disposal, the possibilities are unbounded. All we need to do is make sure we keep talking.
I'll just finish off. These are the services that AbilityNet offer, and if you want to follow at AbilityNet or me at USA Today, I'll tweet those links, and I'll also send them to Lisa as well. So for Professor Hawking, it was communication. We saw that BT advert about the importance of talking, and communication it was his particular need, and the technology was there for him. And for me, it was to be able to get around my vision impairment and to be able to access the internet. For other people we've seen today, it was mobility. There are so many different areas where technology exists, and you just need to be applied in the right way. And as long as it's done with inclusion in mind, then it will transform people's lives. I just want to finish off sort of on a personal note. So I mentioned right at the beginning that technology, I was really fortunate it came along at the right time for me to do my education and to become employable. And unfortunately in the UK, still 73% of people with a vision impairment are out of work, for example, and that's not because they haven't got a lot to offer. It's just because there is this gap between what technology can do for them and applying that technology and getting over this awareness gap that people have that technology is incredibly empowering. And oftentimes it's just that employers can't imagine those people being in their workforce and not being a big hassle to them and not being a drain on their resources, but they've got so much to offer. And oftentimes they are power users. Their technology doesn't just kind of bridge the gap, it actually kind of exceeds and they become really, really powerful, productive people. The health and safety executive, for example, put out some stats that showed that disabled employees are actually more loyal. They stay longer in their jobs, maybe because they can't count on getting another job if they leave. They are as productive, given the right adjustments in place, and they actually take less sick leave than their able-bodied counterparts. So, it really does benefit, and a diverse workforce, is incredibly useful to have to make, to broaden people's appreciation of what's out there and the power that technology has to offer. For me, I think that if it wasn't for technology, I don't think I would have got my education, and AbilityNet wouldn't exist because of, it's all about technology and helping people to realize what technology can do. And so if it wasn't for technology and being able to be employed and moving to the part of the country where I live, which is Warwick, it's very nice, come and see our castle, it's lovely, then I wouldn't have a job, I wouldn't have met my wife because she was in the area that I moved to, and I wouldn't have my gorgeous children. So I owe everything to the technology. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I told you about the
made a bolt out the door. So our aim when we put together together the thought leadership element of Lynx Academy was to be thought-provoking, to inspire people, to make people cry when they're giving to or listening to presentations. But I think this is more than like just smash those objectives. Absolutely incredible. So thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you.
Really, really fantastic.
and Archie says thank you too.
And Archie says thank you also. But yeah, hopefully that's been really insightful for all of you and really, really thought-provoking. So thank you everyone for attending. And I don't want to upset Archie again by giving you another round of applause. But do you want to take questions? Does anyone have any particular questions?
Well, Mark, not so much a question, but just an observation. Just like you covered up all the stuff there about the apps and things like that, but an article that I saw, it was about video gaming, and it was a guy who'd lost a lot of the his movement in his hands, and one of the it was a British story, and I think it was one of these third-party controller manufacturers. They actually made him a bespoke controller, just because he was affected just before Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, and he just wanted to complete it, and with this thing that they made for him, he was able to do it. And I just thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about Connects and Leap and stuff like that, and the new Amazon phone, which is coming out apparently in the next month or so, is going to have similar capability built just into the camera. Well, it's got 3 cameras to achieve it. Spatial awareness, being able to analyze people's movements, including eye gaze. So, a decade ago, to do eye gaze, eye control, so that wherever you move your eyes on the screen, the arrow follows it exactly, and to be able to click by blinking, that sort of thing. That was the Tobii eye gaze, £18,000. Now it's software. It's software in, just being able to use the webcam in your laptop, for example, or on top of your monitor, and special software. So it's a very fast-moving area. And me, for example, if I wanted a talking GPS device, then the cheapest one, which was pretty basic, it didn't have half the functionality of a dozen free apps that I can now use on my phone. It would be the Trekker Breeze, and that was 750 quid to have a talking GPS. A talking MP3 player before iPods and iPhones came along, £275, and it looked like the worst plastic thing you can imagine, and the voice on it was terrible, but I could at least choose which songs I wanted to listen to. So there were so many examples of where specialist devices are now being supplanted by mainstream technologies because they're getting so flexible, they're getting so inclusive. So absolutely, we're moving into kind of I want to say a golden age, but I think it's only going to get better and better. So we're moving at pace, and things are moving so quickly. Moore's law. Back in the 70s, this chap at IBM said that processors were going to double in speed every 18 months, and in the first sort of decade or so, that proved to be true. Every 18 months they were doubling, and after that, chip manufacturers made it happen because they didn't want to break this Moore's law. They wanted to make it a reality. So we've managed to do that every single 18 months since the 70s. And anyone that knows about a logarithmic curve, it goes exponential. So sooner or later, what's going to happen. So I think we're moving towards a very steep part of that curve. And all of these, it's not just to do with chip speeds, it's to do with how much capacity you can put on a RAM chip. It's to do with storage in SSDs. It's to do with software intelligence. It's to do with price. The price is halving every 18 months, kind of thing. So it's all moving in the right direction. Thanks.
Any other comments, observations, questions? Dan?
Yeah, probably an extension on Mark's point actually, which was it was interesting, Robin, to see the proportion of specialist apps for disabilities versus mainstream apps or software, and what your experience is working with people as a balance there. Simply because, as you're saying, if it's a case that there are mainstream apps and software out there that do a better job, or an equal job, if not better job, than specialist apps, it's an obvious choice, isn't it? Even if it's not designed for that purpose. And a lot of what we do is often thinking about how we can create something new or different. And perhaps the first point of call is to look at what's already out there and the application of what's already out there, rather than creating something new just for the sake of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you can make everything, kind of inclusive design your kind of mantra in everything that you do, whether it's an intranet, a website, software, an e-marketing campaign, a PDF that you're creating, whatever it might be. If you think about the edge cases, the broadest audience possible, not just the 80%, then you're going to be really helping. And as I mentioned before, this idea about mobile computing really takes that 80% and puts them in the 20. So accessibility and inclusive design is actually for the 100% now. So you'd be mad not to think about accessibility, because that's the kind of key. And in fact, in AbilityNet, we don't really like, accessibility is quite a dangerous term, in as much as, oh, do I have to think about accessibility? Oh, I've never really got to grips with that. That sounds like a lot of hassle. It's going to need extra budget. It's kind of this bolt-on thought process that people kind of get to grips with more or less successfully, or perhaps try and kind of put off until the next project. And when it's bolt-on, when push comes to shove, it can also be dropped off as well. So whereas if you stop thinking about accessibility being for those disabled people, if you think about it being for the 100% because of mobile computing and the fact that everyone's temporarily disabled, then you start to think, okay, I've got to get with the program, I've got to think about it in my sort of daily work and start to thread it into everything I do. Then it won't be dropped off, because it's kind of integral, and you're going to be producing stuff that is going to be as broadly inclusive as possible. Then you could decide, do I go the extra mile to kind of add on, I don't know, text-to-speech, for example? Is the app that I'm producing, say, going to be particularly useful when people are driving, when they're temporarily visually impaired because they can't, look at the screen for any length of time? So any apps that have got a kind of a car mode, maybe they're more verbose, or maybe you can, like with Waze, you can wave at the camera and it'll bring up the options of things that you want to report, like, traffic jams or speed cameras or roadkill or whatever it might be, just by issuing a command to the phone, say. So yeah, make things broadly inclusive and then add on those extra, bits of functionality if you want to kind of really cater for edge cases. I don't want to say cater for people with different impairments, because it's not. It's use cases now. It's about everybody. In America, the disabled community have this phrase, this saying for disabled people, for able-bodied people. They call them TABs, which stands for temporarily able-bodied, which means that disability will kind of get you all in the end. And which is true. There's this silver tsunami, as they call it, where it's an aging population and people are, you need to think much more about the older customers that you have, etc. But because of mobile computing, that temporarily disabled thing is actually on a daily basis now, as I mentioned before. People will be temporarily disabled because they're using their phones or their smartwatches or something in an environment where it's not super easy to use them unless the thing that they're trying to access has been, had some thought put into it to make sure that it's inclusive. So.
Any other comments? No, everyone's looking rather stunned. No, fantastic. Thank you everybody very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.